I define border culture as having to stride between two parts of oneself within your life. I'm thinking more about how you have to assimilate to American culture, yet also be true and connected to your family in the traditional sense. So I think it's very hard because you're not sure who you really are, and I think that growing up as a young woman, there's a lot of there's identity crisis, and just that alone plus having to deal with two cultures in your life, I think it's really difficult. Also thinking about how I have to be this very sane, stable person in society, and as someone who suffers from mental illness, it's really hard because I always feel like there's a time. I've always been told that there's a time and place for everything, and you can't cry in a professional setting, which I can understand. But then there's also a part where if you're wherever you are, it doesn't really matter because your depression will set in and you will be in a state, and you can't really do anything about it. I feel like a lot of it is based on code switching and having to be very professional and very Americanized, and then there's also the other side where you're with your family and you can use whatever vernacular you want to. Again, I always feel like I have to speak a certain way, and even when I'm in situations where I don't necessarily have to, I still feel that way. It's funny because I feel that even though I feel very comfortable and I can speak however I want to in my household, I still feel like I have to speak a certain way in front of my mom because she views speaking in this very white way as something that's like she's done a good job because she feels like we need to be very Americanized. So I think it's really, really hard to be one person when you have to go between these two borders in one's life. And I think it's can get very detrimental to one's identity and one's growing. So it's really complicated. So I remember starting college in a very small town in Massachusetts, and it was all women's college. I remember joining the organization on campus for Latinas, which is Nosotras, and I feel like that was the only way that I felt like I was closer to home. I mean, again, I was among all these other women, which was great, but I felt like I had to feel more connected to my culture, my Latino culture, and so I think that that was very helpful for me. I mean, there were a lot of times where I couldn't get out of bed and I'd stay in bed all day because I didn't want to go to class. I didn't want to deal with anything. It was a lot of pressure um, on me. I mean, especially since, my family members never completed college, and so it was a lot of pressure on me and both me and my sister. And I felt like I was back at home when I was with my nosotras ladies. We would have like dance parties, and we would cook food, and I just felt like a lot more comfortable with them. I'm working on a photo project regarding people of color and mental illness. Media representation of mental illness always excludes and silences people of color, and I think that once we start including people who look like us, like people of color, communities of color, I think that that would be more helpful. I think that if you saw someone who looked like you, that you would feel included and that you would feel like you have a stake in this fight and that it's something that you are involved with. I definitely use my activism to deal with it because it removes it's I just feel like it makes it less about me and more about everyone else and how I could use this to improve other people's lives and open communication and ultimately remove the stigma of mental illness, open the conversation, and hopefully decrease the suicidal ideation within Latinas because Latinas have the highest attempted suicide rate. I personally know because I've tried doing it multiple times, and I don't want other young Latinas like I was to attempt that because each attempt is closer to actually succeeding. And I think that the fact that I've been able to survived through my multiple attempts, I think that there has to be something more to this. So there has to be a reason for why I'm still here, and I definitely want to use it to help other Latinas and give them another reason to live, give them an advocate or someone they can look up to. Um, so yeah, it's it's definitely more than me, and it's definitely something that I'm extremely passionate about, and I really hope to make a difference.